Hello, I'm James Stanley, one of the Wavelength lead artists, and as part of this online seminar that Quench Arts are running this week, I'm going to talk about these, Roli Blocks. So Roli are a British company. They are passionate about education, creating music technology tools to be used in the classroom for people with limited musical experience. They're advertised mainly to beginners, so you can pick them up in places like the Apple Store, targeting people that have never made music before. But they're used by professionals in the music industry, right up to the standard of Phineas, Billie Eilish's brother and producer of her critically acclaimed, wildly popular, hugely successful debut album. Now we use them on the Wavelength project. I know that they're starting to be used in more and more schools and colleges because of some of the features that are on them that enable people to make music in new and in interesting ways. So I thought I would do a quick demonstration on some things that I use them for and how you can very quickly start to make music using this kind of equipment. So the first thing to mention about these Roli Blocks is how versatile they are in the way that you can lay them out and use them in all sorts of different scenarios and circumstances. So you can see three products on the desk here. So the C-board, the regular block, and a live looper block here too. They can be clipped together and used as one unit using some magnetic connectors. Also separately, they work completely wirelessly. They use MIDI over Bluetooth to send information back to a phone, a tablet, a laptop, Mac, or PC. So this means that they can be passed around a group, they can be used in a room. People can play multiple units at the same time, but don't necessarily have to be connected. But at the same time, they can also come together, be put on a desk in front of a more traditional production suite. So essentially, because of how flexible they are, whatever you're hoping to use them for, the likelihood is there will be some kind of way that they will fit into your current workflow. Now, the thing that sets Roli products apart, and the thing that they're quite famous for, is their controller surfaces. So that's the same on both of these products, but I'll explain it using this block here. So it's a continuous playing surface made of this kind of silicon material. Basically, anywhere you touch, however you move, will trigger some kind of sound. So this is laid out like a piano. You'll notice the same pattern. Our white notes, white strips here become the black notes on a traditional piano or a keyboard. So if I find a middle C, the surface is really, really sensitive. So the harder I push down, I can get a lot of expression, a lot of volume out of that. I can move my finger up to change the modulation. I can move my finger left and right as well to change the pitch of that note. Now everything is tracked on a note by note basis too, so I can play multiple notes and I can change, say, the pitch of the higher note, leaving the pitch of the lower note unchanged, which leads to a lot of different possibilities and a lot of different ways of making sounds. Now this is really, really useful for people that haven't made music before, because essentially what this is doing is it's giving us an interesting, a visually engaging and innovative, a really tactile way of playing. It's an instrument that you look at and you can't help but want to touch it and want to play with it. And then essentially as soon as somebody puts their fingers on this instrument, it starts making a sound. And from that point onwards, they're not necessarily tied in to the same limitations or boundaries that are put into place sometimes by more stereotypical physical instruments like a piano or a keyboard or a guitar. They can now move between notes, change notes after they've hit them, alter them, all of those kinds of things. So essentially, once their fingers are there, they can move them in any direction pretty much that they want until they find a sound that resonates with them, until they find a pattern that they like or a way of playing that they like, and by that point they're already making music, which is fantastic. Now all of this works through a free app called Noise. That can be downloaded through the App Store. If you haven't got any of this hardware, it's well worth looking into still, because a lot of the sounds in there are free to use and sound great. There's also a lot of features that are still really, really useful. But when you combine the hardware with the software, it starts to become quite interesting, because you can start looping and layering a load of those sounds together and really, really quickly create a piece of music, either with an individual or with a small group of people. So if I was to hit our metronome button here and then record, I'll put in our first loop. So that'll just keep playing round and round and round for us. And whilst it does, I will show you this instrument. So the block has a slightly different surface. It's made of the same kind of material, feels kind of the same. It's still got the same continuous movement capabilities, but it's got this configuration of lights which can help us and guide us in different directions, as we'll see. So right now it's set to some drums. So as soon as I hit the surface, it will tempo sync some drums for us. Again, the fact that it's tempo synced breaks down a whole load of barriers for people making music for the first time. It means that people very, very quickly can make something that sounds good without getting frustrated, and without some of those technical difficulties and bits and pieces that we've probably all gone through ourselves in the past, that for some people could be enough to put them off continuing on their musical journey. So we can still hold our finger down to change the sound, we can move it around, we can, on the different coloured lights, we can hear different sounds of the kit, we can play multiple at once. So let's try and record another loop this time round. So we can leave gaps in loops if we want to, get them to come in later, and we can change things as much as we want to with that. But as I say, we can also change the layout of these blocks as they come. So if we click this button here, we can see that it moves to a slightly different layout of lights here. Now what this does essentially is it lights up a set scale that we can choose. We can choose whatever scale we want to. This one currently, I'll play it for us. Guides us in some notes that it thinks we might like to play in this piece of music. Again, really, really useful for breaking down some of those barriers for people that aren't as au fait with music theory. It's a really good learning tool to teach people about intervals and the way that scales works. We can still play all of the notes in between. It doesn't block them off for us. It just lights up those ones that are in that certain scale. We can still slide between our notes. We can still move up and down to change modulation of our notes too. So we can hit record and we can play in another pattern. Few of the features that are built in here that are worth showing if we keep pressing this button whilst we're there. We've got a little mixer, so if we were to create a production that we really liked and we then wanted to take that into a live setting, perhaps add in vocals over the top or other live instruments, we can start turning off certain sounds So we can go back to just that first track. We can change the volume so we can bring these ones in slowly. All sorts of bits and pieces. There's also some effects that we can control with this kind of X and Y pad. We can do that to all of the tracks, or we can just choose to apply it to certain ones. So here we are applying it just to the drums. And there's various effects built in, so we've got a few more here. So there are tons and tons of features on all of these products and inside that app that can be super useful. The sounds alone are really inspiring and great for people to start using. They work in all sorts of different styles and genres, so appeal to lots of different interests of young people that you might be working with. So I've scratched the surface in just a few minutes really with some of the things that you can do. But they are fantastic at engaging people with music and then helping people to create something that they can be really proud of really quickly.